To his 8 children, he was nothing short of a superhero, a figure of strength and endless affection. To the young men on his local football team, he was a dedicated mentor, a guide steering them through the complexities of life. To his colleagues at the sprawling Jaguar Land Rover factory in Solihull, he was simply a fellow working man, a reliable presence on the assembly line, doing whatever it took to provide for his large and loving family. But on the hardened streets of Lee Bank, a notoriously rough inner-city area of Birmingham, Anthony Sargeant was known by an entirely different name, a title whispered with a mixture of reverence and fear: the King. He was a man who commanded an unspoken respect, a form of authority that, in the city's violent and unpredictable gang scene, is a currency often paid for in blood and intimidation. This is the story of how the King of Lee Bank's 2 profoundly separate worlds, that of the devoted family man and the feared street figure, came crashing down in a brutal, meticulously planned drive-by murder that left a family shattered and an entire community reeling in shock and terror. It's a story of modern gangland warfare, where territory is everything and insults are answered with overwhelming force. It's the story of a complex and sprawling police manhunt that pieced together a digital puzzle of cellphone data and CCTV footage, chasing ghosts through a digital landscape. And ultimately, it's a story about the grim, cyclical nature of revenge, a violent echo that always follows the initial blast. How did the life of a doting father and a feared street enforcer collide so violently on a warm August night? And what does it say about a man when the life he built to protect his family is the very thing that leads to his destruction? The King of Lee Bank. Anthony Sargeant was a man of deep, almost irreconcilable contradictions. At just 33 years old, he carried the immense responsibility of being the proud father of 8 children, who saw him not just as a provider, but as their ultimate protector. In the warm confines of his family home, he was described as a bubbly, energetic, witty soul, the undisputed backbone of their lives, a man who constantly pushed them to be their best and to aim higher than the world around them might expect. He lived a life that, on the surface, was the very picture of legitimate, everyday respectability. He held down a steady, demanding job at the Jaguar Land Rover plant, a symbol of industrial pride and honest labor. In his spare time, he poured his energy back into his community, coaching a local football team and dedicating countless hours to mentoring young men, offering them a positive role model in a neighborhood that often lacked them. But away from the humming machinery of the factory and the green turf of the football pitch, another identity was forged in the crucible of Birmingham's streets. In the turbulent, ever-shifting landscape of Lee Bank, a place historically defined by brutal turf wars and fragile, violent loyalties, Anthony Sargeant had earned his formidable nickname, the King of Lee Bank. This wasn't just an empty title, it was a status built on years of reputation, on an intimate and chilling understanding of the underworld's deadly code. His name carried an undeniable weight. With that weight came a certain kind of respect, but it also brought a long and dangerous line of enemies, rivals who saw his throne not as a fixture, but as a prize to be taken. He was navigating 2 completely separate, parallel worlds, one where he was simply dad, and another where power struggles were not abstract concepts, but a matter of life and death. It was a perilous, high-wire balancing act, maintained through sheer force of will. But as the long, hot summer of 2018 drew to a close, that wire was about to snap, and the fall would be fatal. The hit. The evening of Saturday, August 25, 2018, began with a deceptive calm. The air was warm, and a quiet stillness had settled over Rickman Drive. Around 9:40 p.m., Anthony Sargeant was standing outside his mother's house, a place that should have been a sanctuary, simply talking with a friend. The street was peaceful, punctuated only by the low hum of a city winding down for the night. That fragile peace was shattered in an instant, with a violence that was as sudden as it was absolute. 2 high-performance cars, a sleek BMW and a powerful Mercedes, suddenly rolled down the street. They didn't belong. They moved with a predatory slowness, their dark frames gliding through the dim streetlights like sharks circling their prey. They were both stolen and fitted with fake, cloned number plates, a clear and chilling sign that this was not a random argument or a spontaneous act of violence. This was a professional, meticulously planned operation. As the cars drew level with Sargeant, there was no shouting, no confrontation, no warning at all. There was only the deafening explosion of gunfire. At least 2 shots were fired from one of the vehicles. The first bullet ripped through the front window of his mother's home, a terrifying calling card that demonstrated just how close his family was to the violence meant for him. The second shot hit its intended target. Anthony Sargeant was struck once, squarely in the back. The entire attack was over in a matter of seconds. The engines roared, and the cars sped away, melting back into the labyrinthine network of the city streets as quickly as they had appeared. This wasn't a messy fight, it was a cold, efficient, and brazenly public execution. Behind them, they left the king of Lee banker dying on the pavement, right outside the one place that should have represented safety and family. Chaos erupted. Neighbors poured from their homes, drawn by the gunshots, only to find the horrifying scene. Paramedics rushed to save him, and he was taken to the hospital, where he began a desperate fight for his life. For 6 agonizing days, he clung on, but the internal damage was too severe. On August 31st, Anthony Sargeant died from sepsis, a deadly infection caused by the single gunshot wound. The king was dead. The manhunt. With Anthony Sargeant's death, what had been an attempted murder investigation escalated into a massive and high-stakes manhunt, helmed by the West Midlands Police. The challenges facing them were immense. Gangland hits are notoriously difficult to solve, protected by a formidable wall of silence built from a combination of loyalty and mortal fear. Witnesses who see such things often decide that forgetting is the safest option. The killers had been methodical, using stolen cars and cloned plates specifically to erase their tracks and make themselves ghosts. But even the most careful and forensically aware criminals leave a trail, however faint. Detectives began the grueling, painstaking work of analyzing hundreds upon hundreds of hours of CCTV footage gathered from across the city. They painstakingly tracked the two-car convoy, following its journey from the Ladywood area, a known gang hotspot, all the way to Rickman Drive. They then mapped its high-speed escape route, watching the digital ghosts of the BMW and Mercedes as they weaved through traffic. This visual timeline was the first concrete thread they could pull. The next, more significant break came from an unexpected source: mobile phone data. In a critical and arrogant mistake, the killers had carried their personal mobile phones with them during the hit. By meticulously cross-referencing cell tower pings with the exact movements of the stolen cars, investigators began to connect specific individuals to the convoy. A phone belonging to one suspect would ping a tower here, just as the cars were seen on CCTV passing that same spot. Minutes later, another suspect's phone would ping a tower miles away, again in perfect synchronization with the convoy's route. A digital picture was slowly forming, one that showed a group of men moving in perfect concert, their phones lighting up cell towers along the exact path to and from the murder scene, creating an undeniable digital breadcrumb trail. The final, decisive piece of the puzzle turned up over a year later, long after the trail might have been considered cold. In November 2019, during an unrelated police raid on a property in Derbyshire, officers discovered a handgun. The weapon was immediately sent to the National Ballistics Intelligence Service, NABIS. There, forensic experts conducted tests and made a startling connection. The unique markings on a cartridge case found at the murder scene on Rickman Drive were a perfect match to the weapon found in Derbyshire. They now had the murder weapon. They had the digital trail placing the suspects at the scene. And they had the names of those suspects, brothers Michael and Connor Goodwin, along with their associates Keenan Anderson and Leon Riley. The long and complicated manhunt was finally over. The net was closing in. The betrayal. As police closed their net, the motive for the killing was officially attributed to gang-related revenge, though the precise insult or transgression that sparked such a ferocious response remains a mystery, likely buried within the closed-off world of street hierarchies. The prosecution's case was clear. This was a brazen, meticulously planned execution, with the Goodwin brothers, Michael and Connor, at the very center of the conspiracy. When brought to trial, all four men, the Goodwin brothers, Keenan Anderson, and Leon Riley, flatly denied the charges, setting the stage for a long, complex, and emotionally charged trial. However, what revealed their mindset most clearly, more than any courtroom denial, was their behavior in the immediate aftermath of the shooting. Less than 24 hours after they had gunned down Anthony Sargeant, while he was lying in a hospital bed fighting for his life, the killers were out celebrating. police uncovered pictures of the men at a pub in the Hockley area of Birmingham, smiling and posing for photos at Connor Goodwin's birthday party. The images were a chilling display of sheer arrogance and a profound, disturbing lack of remorse. It showed a group of men utterly detached from the gravity of their actions, capable of celebrating a birthday just hours after attempting to end a life. Their denials continued throughout their police interviews and the subsequent trial. Michael Goodwin, who was assessed as having an IQ of just 55 and significant learning difficulties, claimed he couldn't remember dates or times, even when detectives pointedly reminded him that the murder happened the day before his own brother's birthday party, an event he was pictured at. The other men largely responded with no comment to the barrage of police questions, relying on the street's code of silence to protect them. They believed their planning, combined with their silence, would be enough. But the evidence, carefully woven together by the police, was simply overwhelming. The digital footprints, the CCTV, and the eventual discovery of the murder weapon formed a chain of evidence that could not be broken. After a grueling 14-week trial at Birmingham Crown Court, the jury saw through their lies and their hollow denials. In July 2022, all four men were found guilty of murder. Justice and revenge. On March 24, 2023, the four men stood in the dock at Birmingham Crown Court to learn their fates. The judge sentenced them to life in prison. Keenan Anderson and Connor Goodwin, identified as playing leading roles, were each given a minimum term of 32 years. Michael Goodwin and Leon Riley both received 28-year minimum sentences. The combined total was a staggering 120 years behind bars, a testament to the severity of their crime. As the sentences were read aloud, the fragile peace of the courtroom was shattered. Chaos erupted in the public gallery as family members of the defendant and the victim clashed, with scuffles breaking out. Yet, through it all, the killers themselves remained utterly defiant. As they were led down to the cells to begin their decades-long sentences, they showed no remorse, instead blowing kisses to their families in the gallery, a final act of insolence. But in a tragic and telling postscript to the case, the cycle of violence they had so viciously perpetuated came for one of their own. A fifth man, Dante Mullings, was also believed to have participated in Anthony Sargeant's murder. However, he would never face a jury. In May 2019, nearly a year after Sargeant was attacked, Mullings was himself shot and killed in another audacious drive-by shooting in Ladywood, his car sprayed with bullets just yards from a primary school. The men responsible for that killing, a clear and brutal act of revenge for the attack on Sargeant, were also eventually caught and sentenced to life in prison. It was a grim and powerful reminder of the inescapable loop of street justice, a world where one murder only serves to fuel the next, creating a domino effect of death and retribution that consumes everyone it touches. The legacy. For Anthony Sargeant's grieving family, the guilty verdicts and lengthy sentences brought a profound sense of justice, but they offered no real peace. The conclusion of the legal process could not fill the void left by his absence. In a powerful statement, they spoke of their unending loss, saying, "Today, we finally have justice for him, although it will never be enough." The court proceedings had provided accountability, but not closure. His sister, Nikita, later addressed the court directly, her words painting a heartbreaking picture of their new reality. "The void he has left is huge," she explained. "Grief is something we are going to have to live with for the rest of our lives." Why was he taken away? This is the question which has not been answered. It's a question that hangs heavy over the entire case, an unsettling silence at the heart of the tragedy. Both the police and the presiding judge have openly admitted that the true, specific motive for his execution may never be fully known, lost to the street code that the killers upheld even after their conviction. The legacy of Anthony Sargeant is therefore profoundly and tragically complicated. It's the story of a superhero dad, a beloved and larger-than-life figure snatched away from his 8 children, who now have to navigate life without their protector. It's also the story of the King of Lee Bank, a title that afforded him power and status but ultimately led to his downfall, attracting the very danger he likely sought to shield his family from. His death serves as a stark illustration that in the brutal world of gang violence, no throne is ever safe, and a crown offers no protection from a bullet in the back. The king is dead, but the vicious cycle that took his life continues to cast a long, dark shadow over the streets he once ruled. Let us know your thoughts on this complex and tragic case in the comments below.